Yeah, hello to another episode of Tech Talk. And today we have a very special session going on here. This is actually the first time we have converted our set to a standing set. Thank you to WRPB Studios. So we can actually walk around a little bit and you can actually see we actually have legs. So that's interesting. Anyway, here's Cameron.
Hi guys. So I'm not as experienced with these older technologies as this young man is, but I definitely have seen my share of repairing them and working on them. So we're going to delve into a lot of his expertise on this.
Thank you for the young man comment. Thank you.
So
anyway,
what is this?
So we're going to talk about a lot of old computer equipment today because we have a very, very cool in-person show coming up on Sunday, August 27th. The actual Florida Retro Computer Club is going to be hosting their annual meeting at our store.
Oh, cool.
Amazing. So, and the public's welcome. We'll have a lot of computers on display, really old stuff, and some obviously cool new things too. We'll have food and some drinks from noon till 4 o'clock.
And of course, we have a museum at our shop currently.
Yes, we've been around for so long. We have a lot of old stuff. Some old people too. You don't want to see those, but
is that some of the stuff we brought here today?
Yes, this is amazing. So anyway, August 27th, we're going to put it on the comments below. It's also on Facebook. But this one here, we'll show you. This is one of our nice prize pieces. This is a Macintosh Plus, and as you can see, it has a really nice keyboard sound. That's back then when the keyboards were still sounding correct, right?
Right before they went over to the fake membranes.
The fake membranes, right. And it has a mouse on it. I mean, the mouse is quite large, and it has a mouse ball. Because back then, one of our most frequent phone calls I used to get at the ECT was, "Hey, my mouse doesn't work anymore. What's jumping or it's erratic."
Was it because it's a dirty ball?
Exactly. So back then you had to take this thing out, clean the mouse ball with a Q-tip, with alcohol, put it back in, and you're back in business.
Well, what's interesting about those mouse balls is it's a roller on the four sides, and as the ball moves, it rolls the rollers.
Yeah.
And so if you imagine it's picking up everything off your desk, the rollers are getting jammed, all of a sudden it can't go to one side.
Exactly.
So one thing I just noticed too, this is the M0001A. Mm-hmm. This is a very, very early model.
Very early one, yes. So this actually used to come in a little case. And when they displayed a similar model like this, when Steve Jobs displayed this, he pulled it out of a bag and it said "Hello World."
Okay.
That's the case right here. This is a later model of this, but that's what that is. So we're very proud of having this on museum. And then also we have a lot of other things to show you. So we're quite excited about it. We all love the retro computers because we've been around for a long time. And I will show you also one of the first computers that got myself into the computer industry.
Okay.
So what was yours?
My first computer was probably one back in like '95 that we custom built.
Uh-huh.
It was a Pentium 2 with like 128 kilobytes of RAM. It was old, but it was enough to play those quick jumpstart games when I was a kid.
Yeah. So you're running Windows 3.11 or 95?
95.
95, okay.
Yeah, I enjoyed every minute of waiting 10 minutes for that Windows 95 to load.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I started a little earlier with computers. I'll show you one. I'll walk out of the picture so I can get it for you. So I might be disappearing. But here we go. This is it. This is actually the Commodore 64. They call it the bread bin design, which looks like a box you put your bread in the morning. That's where it came from.
Gotcha.
And same color too.
So I hear that was one of the first 64-bit systems to come on the market.
Oh no, it's 64 kilobyte. So or just capacity.
See, I'm learning too.
So this is way before 64 bits. This is 8-bit architecture.
Gotcha.
Megahertz on this was 1.07, I believe.
Wow.
So very slow, but the things you could do with this Commodore were amazing. One of the first computers, very popular, that could do sound, animation, games on it. And the reason why I got into this is because I was not a good speller in school. And my mom thought, hey, buy him a computer, he might want to start typing on a computer, and that got me into computers because it started this whole thing. Really cool.
What's interesting about this one that's very similar to a lot of the new ones is the direct-to-TV output.
Yes.
For a long time, back in the 90s and early 2000s, VGA was the way to go. And there were some TVs that had VGA, but they didn't have composite or component video.
Right, so this is a composite, obviously, plugs into old television. But yeah, there you go. It's missing a key, so.
And you guys are probably familiar with the Commodore 64 for retro video games, but they were also used for programming, word processing, literally anything you could think of. They were a multi-key, and a lot of times you had to write the software yourself.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, it was really sad when Commodore went out of business, because by now they could have been a real major powerhouse. They just missed the boat, you know, that's all it was.
And if you see one of these things, don't throw it away.
Oh,
Come
no.
and see us over ACT, or let us know, we'll appraise it for you, because these things can be worth a lot of money if they're in good working condition.
Yeah, and we can actually also work on these. We can actually repair those.
Very
so
cool.
we can do that. So, what's the next thing to show you? This is kind of cool. So we all know, we started, and I give this to you here, so you can show that to the audience. So we all started with, obviously, old days was tape drives. That's a little bit before my time too, but tapes to load programs. And then, we finally went to something called floppy disks. And a lot of people don't remember that, but this is an 8-inch floppy disk.
Wow, it's almost like a record.
Yeah, it's huge, huh?
A frisbee.
That's where the name floppy comes from.
Ah, okay, because these guys aren't really
very
so
floppy.
floppy.
Exactly.
So it went from super floppy to kind of floppy to not floppy.
Right. So my father's first computer was a CPM machine, and it was running CPM, which was before DOS, and it had two of those. You stick one in for the operating system to load, clonk, 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 for a minute, and then you put in this disk for your program and to save your data.
What's the capacity of that?
If I can read right, this is 256 bytes.
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 Wow.
That's all we got. That's it.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we moved on to the 5 1/4.
Which stayed around for a while.
Oh yeah, very popular.
Into the 94, 95, 96.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I was a kid, these 3.5 floppy drives were the way to go. And even still, they only had a little over a megabyte availability. But compared to the first floppies, it's 10,000 times more.
Right. And actually, a really cool thing back then was these floppy disks were one-sided only, many of them. But you could put a little notch on this side, you can make a hole punch on this side, then you can turn them around and use the other side.
Huh. Okay.
So we bought like a stack of hundreds, and we punched them all with a hole puncher, and we got to use the other side, which is quite amazing.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
So you mentioned the tape was before your time.
Yes.
Well, some of you might have heard of Amazon. It's a relatively big company at this point in time.
Yeah, yeah.
They offer something called Amazon Web Services, and part of that is cloud backup and storage. Well, their very least expensive tier is called Amazon Glacier Web Storage. So if you have a lot of data, I mean terabytes and terabytes, that is the least expensive way to have your data stored. However, to retrieve it, it could take a day or two so they can spin up the tape and transfer it over.
Oh.
And tape's not completely dead either. IBM is using FLAPE. It's flash with tape. So it's a flash indexing system with the tape.
Uh-huh.
So some old things never die.
I learned something new just now.
Yeah.
So hey, so moving on to the next one. We're going to show this thing off. This is quite nice. So this is one of the very, very first, and I have to be careful with this because this is getting a little fragile. This is one of the very, very first IBM portable computers. So as you can see, it has really cool dual floppy drives up front, and it's heavy. It has a handle on it, so back then, if it stopped working, you can take that handle and throw it in the dumpster.
Now, that was in the 70s and 80s, back when sports cars and stuff like that, the Thunderbirds and Camaros. I believe this is the IBM convertible?
There's a Lodgeable, it was before that. The Lodgeable was basically like a suitcase. It just had the screen and everything built in, actual real tube screen, and then the keyboard was on top of it to make it a suitcase. Very, very heavy. I actually had one in my possession a long time ago, and then it disappeared. It's sad. But that's pretty cool too. So.
I'll tell you from a maintenance perspective,
yeah.
It's one plug to unplug the battery and put a new battery in. So we would appreciate that now, Apple, if you're listening.
Oh yeah, that would be really, really nice. So moving on to the next one. Let's see what we got.
This is one of my favorites. I've always been a fan of portables. This is the IBM Dolphin. It is a portable PDA-like computer. This computer is very cool because just like a regular computer, it's a little bit newer. This is like 93, 94. It has Ethernet. It's got a regular modem, a regular fax modem. It's got parallel. It's got VGA. And it's got a PS2 keyboard slot.
Right.
As well as an external hard drive or floppy disk drive. Very, very cool. Very, very lightweight. The screen is very responsive. This was a very cool one.
Yeah, it's like it's like a very early iPad design. So this is actually 286 in here, 286 12 megahertz, which was, back then it was a speed demon.
Right, so they really shrunk that down.
And it even has SCSI built in, early SCSI built in, which was quite amazing. And this thing works.
You can't throw a coprocessor in there because of its size. But
can't do that. So, and then
another IBM.
Another IBM, which actually people are really trying to collect this one now. This is getting very popular.
It's very small.
See, it's very small, but when you open it up, something amazing happens. I'm going to show that on camera. Actually, the keyboard opens up. You see, the keyboard has a mechanism to it where it actually slides open past the size of the original laptop.
So it's truly a mechanical keyboard.
It is, it is. And they call this a IBM Butterfly.
Butterfly, okay.
Because it opens like a butterfly.
You know, IBM is, for the ThinkPads, have always stuck with that red nub. And I talked to someone from IBM 10 years ago, and they said they have die-hard users that absolutely love that.
I like using this thing too. It for some applications like scrolling up and down, it's really nice. And you know, that's before the touchpad, obviously.
And one thing that's cool too is it's a different interface than on the touchpad. I just worked on one of these, a nice newer one, I think a T560 or something newer, and we did a Windows reinstall, and the touchpad driver wasn't working. It just wasn't working because it wasn't built into Windows 10 for the drivers, and it hadn't been updated yet. But the nubbin worked because it's directly integrated into the motherboard.
It's a hardware.
Yeah.
It's hardware based.
Exactly.
Yeah. So yeah, it will work all the time, most of the time. Yeah.
Is that an IR port in the back?
Yes, this has IR. So actually, in the old days, also IR was used to communicate with printers, like a little portable Canon printer.
Yeah.
And you can print kind of remotely with it by having it close to the computer.
I bet your kids, if they got their hands on this, they were messing with TVs.
You could actually, but I tell you what, that's something I fixed many, many times, the IR connection, and it was very, very flaky. It was not reliable at all. So I'm glad it's gone.
Microsoft is still using the IR. Some of you might have to type in a PIN on your password to do the face identification on your computer. On my laptop, it's a IBM Carbon, and it uses IR to detect that your face is accurate. So once again, IR is still around.
Yeah. So, I know we're showing a lot of stuff here. Now, I think this is kind of special to you, right?
Okay. So, I lived in the middle of nowhere, Tennessee. I went to high school in Tennessee, and our town had less than 1,000 people in it. The library gave me all of their 286s. I had 10 286s stuck in my room.
Wow.
And then at one point in time, I managed to get a Toshiba satellite, because those 286s I couldn't do anything with them. They were just, they needed more software, there was no internet. I got a Toshiba satellite L35S2174, and I was so interested in the different types of operating systems, Warp, OS, Solaris, all of the different ones, that I really wanted to put Macintosh on my satellite.
Macintosh?
And at the time there was what's called a Hackintosh program.
I remember that, yes.
So I had to get specific drivers for the ACHP and everything, to get everything going good. So the satellites are still around. They had a couple bad years of construction, but you can see this is a brick house.
Oh, this is thick. This is a slim version, I guess. So this is what, easily an inch and a half thick, right there, this thing?
Yeah.
Wow.
But compared to the other ones we've displayed otherwise here tonight or today, this actually has a Pentium 2 and was designed to run Windows NT.
So you can see how thick this thing is.
This is a 99 2000 machine. So it's not that old relatively, but it's very well built.
And it's before USB.
PS2 or serial?
No USB port yet.
Okay.
Nothing. Oh no, I see one. One lonely USB port. That's when it just started. But back then also we had what's called PCMCA cards for the old folks who are watching this. These are little cards right that popped out of the side to make anything work.
They seem to be everywhere.
This is right here. You see what's kind of broken in there. But so that's the only way in the old days to expand your notebook.
Right.
Is to add a PCMCA card for a network card, a modem, anything like that, or CD-ROM drive. And this thing actually has a built-in CD-ROM drive.
Which is disappearing now. We have customers all the time. I had a customer come in the other day that wanted to rip their entire CD collection of 200 CDs, and their computer doesn't have a CD reader. So we do have those in stock if you want to come by.
Yeah.
One thing that's cool about this too is if you look at the newer computers, they are almost as stripped down as possible. You might get 2 USB-C ports and a charging USB-C port. Maybe not even a headphone port. This was very encompassing. It had headphones, microphones.
Oh, got everything on it. Yeah, yeah.
I mean, you can see in the back it has serial, every kind of parallel port, every kind of port available. So they really wanted to capture the business from IBM with IBM's computers.
Well, back then these were about $3,000 to $4,000 right here, easily. And I know business people didn't really, have a problem buying them because that's the only option there was out there.
Yeah. Exactly.
But I can see you're right about the disappearing ports. I've read just a report about Apple, because Apple always, the design always comes first before function.
Right.
I think so. And they're taking away even more ports. So in the future you're going to have not many ports at all on a Mac.
Right.
Maybe 1 2 ports, that's it.
Now the nice thing about Thunderbolt, which is the Mac version of USB-C, or just regular USB-C, is it almost converts to literally anything. You can go USB-C to audio, VGA, HDMI,
Right.
USB to your printer, so USB-C is a very universal port, but I feel like in the next 5 or 10 years, we're going to have computers with no ports, and we're going to go back over to local wireless data transfer.
Yeah, interesting.
Just for the aesthetic.
One thing, this is kind of off topic, but this is something, if anybody's listening, any engineers listening out there, something I always like is having a computer cable you can plug in and screw down doesn't come out. We had the old 9-pin connections, you had 2 screws on the side, that thing would not come out. So now we have USB ports, they pop out easily, and you don't want that in a mission critical environment like a hospital or
Right.
somewhere else. You want something that stays plugged in. So USB-C, for example, it's a great port, but it's so small and it has no way of keeping the plug in the jack itself.
Right, didn't you mention you were looking at some way to have like an adapter that would slide on these cables and lock in place?
There must be something out there, and hopefully someone will develop that we have some way of locking in a USB-C port that you can't just yank it out. That would be a really nice addition to have on computers.
That reminds me of a joke I've heard from computer technicians. So VGA is the computer's video cable on most older machines and even some newer that goes from the tower to the monitor. And they are either tightened by the hand of God himself and they can't be taken off,
Yeah.
or they're so loose that the thing is barely holding
That
on
was
by
good.
it.
Hand to God. Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen that many times. We used to get computers in and they were so over tightened, so you basically take it off and the little standoffs come with it.
Yeah.
Or sometimes we've had customers rip out the whole port. There's no VGA port left on the motherboard because it was torn off with the plug.
Right.
It took some immense power there to do this.
I actually have a special tool on my bench right now for those occasions, so I can take off, the standoff and re-put it back into wherever it was supposed to be going.
Right.
So the computer show, it's the 27th.
27th, so let's recap that. 27th at ACT Computers. So yeah, we're at 1525 US 1 Vero Beach, 32960, and that's in the old Kmart Plaza, soon to be Tractor Supply. It's going to be from noon till 4 o'clock.
Okay.
So the public is welcome, and that means you to attend. We're going to have some food there and some refreshments, and maybe something else. Who knows? But it's going to be quite a nice large show, displaying everything even cooler than what we have right here. We're talking about machines from the 70s and even earlier than that. And we have more to show too.
And we've been open for so long that we have a machine that we built, one of our first ones, with Windows 95. Has a tact chopper on it. It has all of your classic DOS games. And then at the opposite end of the shop, we have a gaming computer that we set up with a steering wheel and shifter and paddles to kind of show the two spectrums, and everything in the middle of the shop kind of encompasses those.
Oh yeah, we have everything from super old to super new. So,
Yeah.
and you're welcome to come by and take a look. And I think that brings us to the end of the show. It was about 20 minutes.
I just wanted to say something. So we've recently revamped the website with some great deals.
Oh yes, definitely.
And kind of designed it more towards user friendliness with shopping. So if you're watching this and you're out of state, you need a hard drive, you need a mouse, you want to buy a gaming computer for your grandson or yourself, we have all that available online. We do ship nationwide, And you can also call us for customer service on any of that stuff. Everything has 1-year warranty. Speaking of vintage, we have over 200 vintage and retro graphics cards and audio cards. We're talking about Sound Blasters, Maxons,
Oh, yeah.
the original stuff.
Right.
So we have a great collection of that available online, so check that out.
Great. And also, the last thing about the gaming computers we build. Everything we build is done in-house. So we have one guy will build the gaming machine for you, so it's not a big factory production. And everything's done slowly and peaceful, and it's a working machine. It's a beautiful design machine.
Tests the dog snot out of them. Sorry to be crude, but he makes sure that when it goes home, you will be satisfied and you will not have any issues.
Exactly.
So,
and that's it now. So thank you so much. Bye-bye.